You're listening to 90 Day Soulmate with the relationship engineers, Jim Golnick and Lisett Guevara, only on LA Talk Radio.
90 Day Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Day Solutions. Welcome to 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
We're going to be talking about the 5 dysfunctions of teams. We're going to be talking about overcoming dysfunction. We're going to talk about real life challenges, and then maybe some tips on creating non-dysfunctional teams, or teams that are still dysfunctional, but despite that, they operate in a way that at least gives good outputs. So when you recognize that you have dysfunction, you can do something about it. The teams that we talk about exist in all various spheres of life. Effective teams require transparent communication, empathy, and genuine feedback. That's what we say. And overcoming dysfunctions is crucial for success, right?
Yes.
So a lot of this comes down to, when we talk about what the dysfunctions are, you'll go, I understand what it is and how it relates to being a couple. So we're going to talk about the 5. We have a couple of themes going on here. Theme 1, we're going to talk about the 5 dysfunctions of teams. Number 1, the book itself is written by Patrick Lencioni in 2005. That these dysfunctions are forming a pyramid where each is built upon each other. And we're going to start with the bottom base of the pyramid in a second here. But I want to bring into play a psychological study on this. Hopefully I'm still recording. I didn't hit the wrong button. Here we go. So, the absence of trust is the number 1. It's the basis for trust in a relationship, in a team, at work. If you're, again, on a baseball team, it's being able to trust your coaches, the other players, trust the umpires. You want to trust in order to have a high-performing team. You want teams that avoid vulnerability. That is considered a dysfunction. When you avoid vulnerability, when you will not allow yourself to make a mistake and let others know that you are capable of making mistakes, that's considered a dysfunction. It leads to you having guarded behavior and hindered collaboration. So if you never want anyone to see you make a mistake, what do?
In my case, I try to looking for the reason why is the mistake and figure out how you can fix it to not repeat the same issue.
Okay, you're trying to say how to avoid having a mistake. I'm saying, how do you avoid someone seeing you have a mistake? Is you avoid interaction with them. Okay. You hide it. Okay. You hide your work. You don't interact. You don't share. And by being guarded in what you do, you are not being vulnerable because you don't want to be hurt by them seeing that you can make mistakes.
Okay.
So sometimes that's, you stop communicating, right? You don't want to communicate, you don't want to share, you hide information, you don't want to let somebody know that, oh, you know what, I bumped the car today, and so you hide it, and so that becomes a growing problem.
Yeah.
You start hiding things. So I want to go to the reference study. There's a reference study, Amy Edmondson's research on psychological safety. It was a meta-analysis of 51 different studies where shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, that's psychological safety. So that's the definition. So once again, psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Basically, everyone's got your back. If you make a mistake, they're going to help you out. They're going to get you out of it. Interpersonal consequences, you know, how we relate to each other and what happens, it will determine performance and efficacy. And again, the consequences may be real consequences, but they also might just be what you imagine the consequences to be. So some people are really concerned or nervous. They may have a perception of consequences that may not be real, but like that could be a fear withholding them from being a good team member. What else do we have here? That a team's history matters in shaping psychological safety, as shared beliefs on how others will react are established over time. So when you're initially brought into a team, there are things called team dynamics. And years ago, when I used to do a training course and train people, there were the 4 stages of building a team, and one was the forming, and then the norming, and then the storming and performing. And these were the different phases that incorporates today. Is when you first form a team, it's like, oh wow, we're a new team, yay. And then the next is norming. Okay, we all want to do the same things and focus on the same things, and I want to do behavior that's similar to yours. But once you start to get comfortable with your team members, or maybe you start to get uncomfortable with them, you start doing this thing called storming, which is conflict. And the conflict starts driving people, maybe they're upset with each other, maybe they don't want to share stuff, they have different opinions and different views. And if you can get to that next stage where, despite the differences in views, opinions, experiences, all the diversity of thought that goes into that team, and you get beyond that and you come together with solutions, that's the performing part. And so we're going to talk about how conflict, that might be the next subject we're going to talk about. The number two thing is absence of conflict. But for an example of absence of trust in a team, here's one. In a bustling urban hospital, the night shift nurses on the ICU are supposed to work seamlessly to ensure patient safety. However, due to lack of trust, this nurse, Emily, consistently rechecks the medication dosages that nurse Sarah prepares. This redundancy wastes time and creates a tense atmosphere. Sarah feels undermined and begins to resent her colleagues, leading to passive-aggressive behaviors. Over time, this lack of trust escalates, causing communication breakdowns during critical situations, ultimately compromising patient and team morale. Not only that, but now Sarah starts acting out in a way that nurse Emily, who didn't trust her, says, aha, you see, I shouldn't have trusted her. So her distrust causes Sarah to act in a way that actually reinforces the reason that Emily distrusted her. So these are what they call dysfunction, right?
But I guess it's when it's not clear in the working environment, for this example, what is the rule, maybe the people acting by.
Yes, so that would be called the context of the team or the structure of the team, whether it's a family, again, or something in business. When people are unclear of their roles and responsibilities and how they are supposed to relate to each other, they then therefore can make up their own way of relating, which can rub people the wrong way and create dysfunction. So you want to talk about conflict? So when you have fear of talking to somebody, if you have fear of bringing up a subject, it's called fear of conflict. Teams that avoid passionate dialogue, that would be fear of conflict. That's a dysfunction. This results in unresolved issues and superficial harmony. And that's there's reference research done by Cartson D. Drew in 2003 that is involved in this. But the interesting part is that superficial dialogue or superficial harmony is the norming part of the team formation. So the forming and the norming, everyone's getting along. It's all harmonic because no one wants to conflict with anyone else.
Everybody's polite.
Polite, and nothing gets done. So let's see what an example of this is. During a high stakes executive board meeting, which can be like being in high school at times, a multinational corporation. The agenda includes a potential merger with a key competitor. Despite the significance of this decision, the board members, wary of conflict, skirt around the topic. They don't talk about this. They offer vague comments and polite nods instead of engaging in the robust debate needed to address the merger's risks and benefits. CEO Jane senses the discomfort but does not push for more input, fearing it might lead to heated arguments. As a result, the meeting ends without a clear strategy, leaving the company vulnerable to market shifts and competitors. The fear of conflict stifles innovation and strategic decision-making, ultimately hindering the company's growth and adaptability. But the interesting part is Jane, the CEO, noticed it and left the context or the structure there to avoid it. So it didn't say, hey, we have to get through this. You need to bring, because she's noticed everyone's discomfort and let it go. So in an environment where, say, your spouse seems uncomfortable, if you say, you know what's going to be better if I don't say anything, rather than, Lisett, what's going on? And then face her being upset at me. Sometimes easier just to say, you know what, I'm just going to go over here and do this for a while. And when I come back, maybe she'll be different.
It's so familiar.
Well, maybe it happens once in a while.
I see in one movie.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's a movie. It's not real life. So you want to go to the third? The third dysfunction is lack of commitment, where teams avoid the unfiltered conflict, which means it leads to a weak commitment and missed deadlines. And this is actually from the book itself. What happens is because the conflict isn't there, they don't get to a passionate consensus at the end where everybody feels they've been heard and then agree with whatever the group agrees. And when you don't get to that point, you end up lacking commitment. And as an example of that, let's look at the example. At a local nonprofit aimed at reducing homelessness, volunteers gather every weekend to organize community outreach events. However, due to a lack of clear communication, many volunteers are uncertain about the specific roles and responsibilities. Sarah, here's Sarah again. What's going on? I know, Sarah's all over the place. But she's a dedicated volunteer, often finds herself duplicating efforts while some tasks are entirely neglected. This confusion leads to frustration and burnout among the team. Despite their shared passion for the cause, the volunteers struggle to commit fully to the initiatives, resulting in haphazard execution and limited impact. The organization's leadership fails to provide the necessary structure, leaving the team disjointed and their noble mission unfulfilled. A lack of commitment and a lack of discussion about why they have this lack of commitment, which again stems from conflict and stems ultimately from trust. So the pyramid of trust first, then conflict, then commitment. So we can go up to number 4 dysfunction. Well, what's next? Accountability. Avoidance of accountability is a dysfunction. Teams avoid holding each other accountable. It can lead to mediocre performance, and that's Katzenbach and Smith did a study on that in 1993. Let's see what we talk about for the example. It is in a suburban elementary school. Now we're in the school situation. The committee responsible for maintaining educational standards faces a delicate situation. Mrs. Thompson, a seasoned teacher, has been frequently absent, leaving her class without consistent instruction. The committee members are aware of the issue, but are hesitant to confront her due to her longstanding tenure and close relationship with the principal. Politics, internal politics within the school. As weeks turn into months, the students' performance declines and complaints from the parents increase. The lack of accountability fosters a culture of complacency where other teachers begin to question the standards they are held to because this other teacher isn't. The committee's reluctance to address the issues undermines the school's reputation and compromises the quality of education as well as the entire staff. So you ever see that, like in a company, some people are favored and they can get away with that, whatever they want, coming in when they want, they don't do the work, and
nobody fired these people.
They're protected. And then people who really care. So you probably really care, and then you see this happening with somebody else, and then over time you're like, well, if they don't care, I don't care. And so it is a dysfunction of teams. And lastly, before we go to our break, we're going to talk about inattention to results. Teams focus on individual interests over team success, results in suboptimal outcomes. Again, another reference to Patrick Lencioni from the book itself. There's an example of this, and this is a basketball team example, I believe. Let's move to that example. On a high school basketball team, several players are more concerned with their personal scoring than the team's overall success. So, am I going to get the high point score record for the school? During the game, John and Alex frequently hog the ball, taking ill-advised shots to boost their statistics. Coach Miller observes the lack of teamwork, but struggles to unify the players around a collective goal. The team starts losing games they should have easily won, as players fail to support each other on the court. The lack of focus on team results breeds resentment among the less prominent players, who feel undervalued and sidelined. This inattention to team success leads to a fractured locker room and disappointing season. It also trickles back down to trust. They don't trust the other players, they don't trust the coaches to do the right thing, and they don't trust that they're all committed to the same outcome.
So when is that the idea is be focused on the result? Or
so it's not just strictly inattention to the results, but if you go all the way back to the beginning, is that when you have the trust, the ability to talk and understand, and you have the same vision and goals, so everything's set, and you have the ability to have the conflict so you can iron out the differences that you have, then you have the commitment. And when you all have the commitment to the same structure, the same mission and goals, then there's the accountability. You hold each other accountable to focus on that. And then the last part is you then focus on that, which is focusing on the results. So it's all a pyramid of stuff. And when you start destroying one of the sections, it just starts trickling back down, and trust can be destroyed because people aren't focusing on the results. All of it is intertwined.
okay.
90 Days Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Day Solutions.
Welcome back to 90 Day Soulmate with Lisett
And Jim.
Today we're talking about the 5 dysfunctions of teams. It's an analysis of the book and our own take on some of it. We're into overcoming the dysfunction, which is our second theme in today's program. The first slide on that is going to be building trust, building that foundation to promote sharing personal stories and experiences. Implement trust-building exercises such as sharing personal histories or strengths and weaknesses. Get to know each other on a personal basis and be vulnerable. Conduct regular team-building events to enhance mutual understanding. Use personality assessments to foster appreciation of diverse perspectives. But it's not only the perspectives. That personality assessments give you how the person interacts with other people. We're going to talk about this later, but when somebody is very outgoing and they're a little bit more aggressive also, so maybe they're an extrovert and they're aggressive, that may shut down the communication from an introvert who's passive. And because of that, you could say, hey, tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Come on, share. It's open. You can share. And some people are like, wait, I don't react to that. And we're going to talk about that later. But a step for getting people to know each other better is maybe that can lower the bar for when somebody feels that they're able to speak. So when they feel more comfortable with the ability to speak and not have a consequence. Embracing conflict, which is number 2, is encourage open debate and safe disagreement. So if you have facilitated discussions, cooperative conflict management, if you actually have somebody who's facilitating, this has to do with the structure of the meeting or the group. When you have a team meeting or a group, the structure is it a free-for-all? Or is it somebody says, let's go around the table, everybody writes stuff down? Is it anonymously collecting ideas and then having somebody read them? So it's not putting someone on the spot to have to talk in front of the group. What is the structure for communication? So conflict can be maybe broken down, or at least it becomes a game rather than a fight. Next on that is concrete steps for this would be, let's make sure we create a safe environment for voicing disagreements through facilitated discussions. In a couple relationship, that could be going to therapy. You have a facilitated discussion with your partner to help you get through some things that maybe you have challenge communicating because you have a perceived conflict. And the conflict might be in your own head, and you may just not be used to getting it out from your head, over your lips, and out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Encourage, so going back to business, encourage diverse viewpoints to stimulate innovative solutions. So you may, rather saying what's your view, say, hey, can anybody think of something opposite of what Joey over here said that may be different? Let's look for a really completely different approach. Not even if it doesn't even have to be yours, just something that you think would be different. And therefore, you can have someone pretend that the conflict is the conflict's not with me, it's with this idea outside of me that just happens to be different than your idea. So now it's the conflict with the idea, not with the person. So instead of being a person-to-person thing, it's an idea versus an idea thing.
But you need to have some kind of leadership in this kind of conversation.
You do. Facilitate leadership. And this is what becomes difficult sometimes in companies that don't see this, don't know this as an organization, or maybe in a couple's relationship, is how do you hey, today we have to go to the therapist again because I don't know how to talk with you. So it's how do you build that long-term relationship where you then feel free to be able to share things with each other. And sometimes, we're brought up a certain way and it's difficult for us.
Yeah.
Next, ensuring commitment. So once you've gone through that conflict and now you want to have commitment, use clear communication strategies. Decision-making frameworks, action plans, regular follow-up meetings. These are ideas that are in the book. But for instance, if you have a framework for making a decision, so instead of it just being, let's make a group decision, let's create a chart. Let's create something structured where we're filling in information so it's no longer personality versus personality, but it's logic, it's detail. You try to reduce the emotion so you can move to the commitment without all that passion. So there might be passion in the conflict, but now get past it. So we're going to look at a structured way of deciding on how to move forward. Develop a decision-making process that involves all team members, so everybody has to do some input. Create clear action plans and timelines from that, and hold regular follow-up meetings to ensure alignment and commitment, so people don't feel like they haven't been heard. And so that's a way to move on with that. Okay, so now we've committed to something. How do we accept accountability? How do we help people accept it? Establish clear performance standards and regular reviews. Use peer evaluations, 360-degree feedback loops. There's some good studies out there that go way back, but having clear communication and setting performance standards. So KPI, key performance indicators. If you say, okay, if we're going to do this decision, this is what we expect it to perform, or how we expect it to perform. And that we'll have regular meetings on its performance, not on did we choose the right method, why did you make this decision, but let's just now measure it. Measure it, what is that, unemotionally, right?
Yeah, but that is when I see company that don't have KPI, and then the decision is made by emotion, not by the objective numbers. So, and it's logical.
I got it. So let's do this then. In your company or in your relationship, set up a system for peer evaluation. So that's funny. Let me ask my neighbors, how do you think my relationship with my wife is going? In seriousness, or all seriousnesses, we can actually have a couple assessment. We can, on Saturday night when we're sitting down for dinner, we can talk about how did the week go? Did I accomplish for you what you thought I needed to? We talked about getting some stuff done this week. Did it get done? How much more time do we need? Establish clear expectations and performance metrics. Use feedback loops to address issues promptly and constructively.
The feedback loop, I guess, is interesting and typical. And in company, the feedback is the supervisor evaluate your
Yep.
employees. But in few companies, see the employees also evaluate the supervisor. So this is you do the complete loop.
And that's one of the, I read one of the, either this book or a different book, there is feedback that companies that are looking to do this type of thing within them, try to fight the dysfunction of teams, should get an honest and open feedback from their employees on how they view the management and how the management communicates. Because the management may think they act a certain way, and that they might be providing a certain structure for the rest of everyone to operate. But when they get how people feel, do they feel the management wants to listen? Do they feel that management, when they do give feedback, pays attention, takes it into account, and values it? Do they not?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can go to somebody? Do you feel like someone will listen? So companies do that, and I was at a company with 4,000 people, and they did that, and it was a 360 feedback loop, but you were feeding back to management, and they learned from there, which of the management was strong in what areas, and then they decided, do we want to do something about this or not? How do we improve our scores?
Yeah.
How do we get better at doing stuff?
And for couple, maybe can be good. They do. So
it can be.
You for me for me, me for you for you. Something like that.
I can feedback for myself. Oh, he's so nice. What a great guy he is. Okay.
Sure.
And then my wife will exit out and say, okay, he's okay.
It's not big English.
And then last, we want to focus on results, is that we want to set the collective goals and track the progress. So this is like the KPIs we were just talking about, what we're committing to, but we committed to them in the commitment, and here we're actually focusing on them and making sure we are hitting those. So this is more of the accepting responsibility for getting the results and focusing on those results that you agreed to. Define clear team goals aligned with the organizational objectives. We just talked about KPIs to measure the progress and performance. KPI standing for key performance indicator. For us, for my wife and I, it might be we want to go out to eat 1 day a week. That's a KPI for us. It could be different. It could be something else, is that we want to have 3 real long conversations during the week at dinner so we can sit down and really just have a close time to plan our future together. The others, celebrate team achievements to reinforce focus on results. We've talked about this before. The celebration is that when you celebrate a reaching of a goal, it gives the brain pleasure. The brain is a pleasure-seeking entity. And when you've worked at something and you've achieved a goal and now you get pleasure at it, your brain will then say, okay, how do I do that again? And if you do that early and often, it then programs yourself or others to perform better, perform looking towards achieving goals. Interesting enough.
Yeah.
Celebrate your successes. Celebrate reaching certain goals and make changes in the ones and the ways and the strategies that aren't working as well.
90 Days Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Days Solutions.
Welcome back to 90 Days Soulmate with Lisett.
And Jim.
Today we're talking about the 5 dysfunctions of teams. Our analysis. We talked about the dysfunctions. We talked about some of the ways of handling the dysfunctions and overcoming them. Now we're going to talk about real life challenges. What does that have to do with stuff? So you read a book like this and it's like, oh, this is great. We could just get people to feel good about having conflict with each other, trust each other, and do this. But I've worked with lots of people, and some people just are quiet, and they don't want conflict, and they will not speak up. And they won't speak up in a meeting, especially when there's somebody there who's really powerful, maybe in position of power. Maybe the person's also outspoken and aggressive, and they feel that they have power over them as well. So maybe they're a subordinate of the person. And so if you feel you're going to argue with that person and you're going to make them look bad in this meeting because you're disagreeing with their viewpoint, you feel I'm going to have repercussions. So going back to that study we referenced before, it's how do I have an assurance long term of the consequence of being open in communication? Very difficult.
Yeah.
So the book makes it seem like all you do is this, this, and this, and that sounds great for similar team members. Say you have, let's just pretend we start a baseball team, and you have people that have a certain ego, they have a certain talent, they have a certain strength. They may come from different backgrounds. One's a catcher, one's a pitcher, one plays, one's is great in the outfield, one's really fast at stealing bases. But what do they all have in common? They are very similar. They're athletes. They're ego-driven maybe because they're professional. They are hardworking. They may have this same thing. So now you say, in order for us as a team to perform better, we all have to have this conflict and yay, yay, rah, rah. When we go through the conflict and commit to something, we're now stronger. But if there's somebody on the team who doesn't quite fit, the more diverse our team is, the more personality differences we have, how do we get that same open to conflict? How do we trust?
It's a long work.
It's a long work. It's hard work.
You have to create a culture in the company, and the culture take 5-10 years for creating one culture.
Yeah, it does. And we'll talk about that too, because your family culture, where you grow up, your religion, all that has to do with how you are, and that may be completely different than someone else. Where you grew up, somebody grew up in, I don't know, let's just say Florida versus New York versus California, or in a different country. That all these countries have different cultures, and depending on where you are in the country, subcultures. So let's look
at different family and different religion, different values. It's a lot of variance.
Absolutely. So the theoretical frameworks that are shown in this book face practical challenges. The hierarchical challenges, personality differences are just two examples. Again, hierarchical being subordinate, manager, CEO, CFO, and you put all these people in a group, and it's a really flat organization, and you're in a meeting and they expect everybody to contribute equally. And somebody who's maybe an hourly line employee, and they're paid at a almost menial wage, and they've got somebody here who runs the entire company. They're like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I just have this job. I've only been here a year, and I don't trust that I can. Say anything you want. Yeah, that's a trap.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Where is the camera?
Yes.
So
let me say, for instance, in a large tech company, junior developers often have innovative ideas, but hesitate to share them at meetings dominated by senior engineers. Again, junior engineers and senior engineers. These senior engineers, with years of experience and strong opinions, often monopolize the discussions. When a junior developer, Alex, proposes a novel approach to a coding problem, it's quickly dismissed without much consideration. The hierarchical barrier stifles creativity and prevents potentially groundbreaking solutions from surfacing. The fear of being overshadowed or ridiculed discourages lower-level employees from contributing, resulting in a loss of valuable insight and a stagnant team dynamic. And it stops them from contributing in the future. It's like, well, you said I could say something, and now I say something, and people jumped on top of me. And no, I'm not the same. I'm not going to go into conflict with a senior engineer. I'm just not going to do it. That's silly, especially if they're the person who does my review at the end of the year. I'm not conflicting with them. And then, the company that says, no, go ahead, share your opinion. We all want to hear your opinion. It's like, so this is one of the challenges of these things. We may feel that these are the dysfunction of teams is easy or not, is easy or difficult to overcome. But I believe that it's both the book and how to work on solutions to to overcome the dysfunctions, I think it's a good thing. I think we can work towards it. But I think in reality, we have to look at what reality is.
Yeah.
You know, one is if all things are being equal and people are equivalent and they feel like they are on the same team and they have very similar traits, then maybe this works. The other is, how long have people known each other? Have they known each other for 20 years or 1 year? Did they grow up together?
Yeah.
Did they you know?
I just have a picture with my friend. You remember we have a friend for 35 years.
Yep.
5 women. And we travel every almost 2-3 years together. And then you have challenge. So I remember one of the challenge that we have when one or two be upset to other two. And we have the open discussion. And then you see the difference based upon that you know each other for 35 years and we are friends. But some people don't like to be really open or transparent with some topic. Other people want to put everything on the table. So, and all emotional in the top. So be open for this is not easy.
And then you go to a group of 20 and everyone has to be open and honest. And then they leave that meeting and then they're just open and honest with their buddy who was just in the meeting with them. Can you believe we talked about this?
Yeah.
So
and
it's
then
like
you create a beat.
Yeah, it's like there's like this little thing that happens here where people share something, and then outside there's the relief of stress.
I don't want to be negative with the technique because lose light maybe work, but you need to prepare the people before the technique because you cannot drop the technique without training, without rule, without culture. So you need to prepare also the communication.
The structure of the meetings, the leadership has to be trained, and there has to be a different way and approach of having meetings.
Yeah.
And it has to be developed over time. It's just not okay, now we are doing this, and now we're doing open and honest communication, and you're going to have conflict, and it's okay. Because if you're not used to that, and it hasn't been the culture,
Yeah.
and maybe it has been the culture, but you just weren't part of the culture, you didn't grow up with, or haven't been part of the business as long, or you're in a different department, or you're at a different level. So let's talk about the big 5 traits. You have the impact of your personality on the interactions you have with others, the openness to new experiences, the conscientiousness, the extroversion. Let's try this again. The big 5 traits impact your interactions. Your openness, your conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism will impact your level of those positive, negative strengths in those areas will impact how you interact with others.
Yeah.
And just because you're told, okay, now you can share your thoughts and feelings, I'm neurotic. I don't want to do that. I'm very agreeable, so I don't want to be disagreeable. Let's just get along.
Or when some people prefer be right, they be wrong.
Yeah.
So
and then introversion,
so it's different personality. Yeah.
That you can say you can be this way, but you're setting up the rules. And again, this is something we talked about before the show, is that this book talks about passionate conflict as being part of a team, and that we need people to become passionate and have conflict. And so it looks like we're trying to move everyone up into this aggressive conflict, even though it's a vulnerable aggressive conflict. It's moving people into this rather than people down from it. So you could have the opposite of this book written, which is teaching people to stop being passionate and stop conflict, and have open and honest, non-conflicting discussions where you can have differences of opinion and you can walk people through how to have a non-passionate, try to remove the emotion and not hurt people. Because it's you're putting people out of their comfort zone. Maybe you're putting people who are introverts out of their comfort zone one way, or you're taking extroverts who are aggressive out of their comfort zone and saying, nope, you can't be that way anymore. You got to be like this. You have to get along with the people who aren't like you. And we don't see that in the book. We don't see you have to push people down to a subdued, logical discussion even though it can be you have opposite opinions, this book is passionate conflict. And so for me, that's a difficulty because I come from not having conflict. And when I come from not having conflict, you want to have conflict, go ahead, have it on your own. Get a mirror. I mean, I don't need to be part of that. All right, was that enough of me complaining? Could be. I'm going to skip that. So here's some other things. Self-esteem, cultural background. These things influence team engagement. So research on psychological traits show that people with high self-esteem versus low self-esteem have differences in how they approach communication and sharing information. Someone with low self-esteem really doesn't want somebody to criticize them. Somebody with high self-esteem may not care. They may share anything. They'll share all their opinions. But someone with low self-esteem doesn't want somebody criticizing them.
Yeah.
So that can be something. What else do we have here? Here's one. In a culturally diverse international sales team, Maria, who comes from a culture that values humility and collectivism, often finds herself at odds with John, whose cultural background promotes assertiveness and individual achievement. Maria's reluctance to highlight her achievements leads to her being overlooked for promotions, while John's self-promotion, sometimes even arrogance, which it comes off as to his peers, this clashes, and it's a cultural clash, which creates tension within the team, necessitating cultural sensitivity training in efforts and other efforts to build mutual understanding and respect. And again, it's in this book, it's saying Maria needs to act like John, the aggressive salesperson, because we need passionate conflict. And now this example is showing how we have to understand culturally the differences, and it comes back down. So I think we can look at the opposite of a lot of these things that are in the book as being other approaches to dealing with dysfunction.
Why relating passion with conflict?
They're saying passionate conflict, not just conflict, but it's passion that you believe in what you're saying. And so I want passion in my conflict because I don't want to just argue with somebody about something just to argue. I want it to be a deeply held, emotionally held, tight belief, and that when we do this, we get the emotion out. I don't know. Maybe that's like you were saying. Maybe that's an American thing. You know, we're mavericks and we have our opinions and we're individuals and
unique in the planet.
We're all unique.
Exactly.
When we come back, we're gonna, I think, finalize this show with what to do, how to do, what do we think the next steps are for you as a couple, you in a company, to work on the 5 dysfunctions and the next steps you can take.
90 Days Soulmate is brought to you by 90 Days Solutions.
Welcome back to 90 Days Soulmate with Lisett
and Jim.
Our final and last section of our show on the 5 dysfunctions of teams, our analysis, conclusion. We talked a little bit about the reality and that you have a much more complicated workforce, maybe relationship, than I believe the book supposes, based upon research in psychology, based upon the real wild diversity of people. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at addressing all of that, let's have some takeaways. You want to have some takeaways here? We are looking at creating non-dysfunctional teams. Let's see what our takeaways are today. So what we want to do in a team setting is we want to balance the differing personalities. We want to leverage diverse perspectives. We want to look at maybe personality assessments to understand the differences between people. We don't have to look at their cultures and their backgrounds and their families and where they come from, but we can look at the result of that, which is maybe their personality now as it exists. So you can look at rotating leadership roles as well, putting people with different personalities in these positions of maybe leading a team. You could look at structured brainstorming sessions where you have structure and you're following a list of what you do and how you do brainstorming, so it becomes more of less emotional and more logical. Look at cultural appreciation, or actually a culture of appreciation, where you're both appreciating people based upon their diversity as well as their differing points of views. And then finally, maybe a mentorship program. So where you have the junior engineer, you team them up with a senior engineer where they become colleagues and they support each other. And now when that junior engineer goes to a meeting, maybe they already have some backing from someone in the senior position, and they feel more comfortable sharing an opinion that's already been vetted by somebody who's there to support them. So here's some things. So some of the personality tests out there, there's a Myers-Briggs and then the DISC personality to understand team strengths, communication styles of the different people. We talked about rotating the meeting facilitation roles. You can have structured brainstorming that we talked about. The foster a culture of appreciation of others, recognize both vocal leaders and quieter contributors for their unique strengths, extroverts and introverts, those who are concrete and creative. Create the mentorship program that we spoke about. What is Myers-Briggs? Myers-Briggs is an indicator that looks at 16 different dimensions of personality. Actually, it's 4, but they're 4 on a scale that when you look at those 4, you get 16. Anyway, it's a good way to look at extroversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, judging and perceiving. You end up getting almost like a fingerprint of personality.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is once you know somebody's personality and they know yours, you can actually kind of say, oh, you're this way, I'm that way. So this is how I should be talking with you. And oh, no, I shouldn't be talking with you. I should be writing you something. Yes, because you like things written down in details. I like hearing your passion and enthusiasm behind anything. And now you understand where you're missing the communication and where you have the potential of having stronger communication. The other one that was listed there was the DISC, which looks at dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness as just different dimensions of personality. Again, it gives an idea of where somebody is in the spectrum of personalities. So you can look at your team members and see how they are different in certain ways they approach things and try to balance the structure that you create on how you're going from information to decision based upon having various paths that take into account the preferences of the different people or your spouse.
And I like that they have some methodology to determine or define personality, because that is a good first step.
Have everyone get their personality thing done, and then anybody who's extreme, just get rid of them. Wait, that's an extreme view. Wait, I'm going.
Yes.
So in summary, understanding the 5 dysfunctions, which we talk about: the absence of trust, which is the lack of vulnerability and openness, which can hinder team collaboration and innovation; the fear of conflict, which when teams avoid passionate dialogue, it can lead to unresolved issues and superficial harmony, which then leads to the lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. These dysfunctions stem from and also aggravate trust and conflict issues. So this is almost like the results of not following the first 2 key things that lead to not having good accountability, avoiding responsibility, not paying attention to the results. That impacts also the trust, because when you're not doing it, we talked about that, if you're not doing these end things, then people, their trust for you is lowered as well.
Okay.
So it's a continuous cycle, is that once you get to a result and you go back into another team and you have to decide something again, do I trust people are going to carry out all the way through the results what this team determines? It's almost like the Deming cycle in a way, but we're avoiding that. I was going to bring it in today, but there's so much to talk about today. We have overcoming dysfunction, building trust by promoting, so overcoming the dysfunction we just talked about, promote personal storytelling, get to know people, team building exercises, maybe personality assessments, maybe some retreats, embracing conflict, encourage open debate, train on conflict resolution, and facilitate discussions in a safe environment. Why not also have non-passionate ways of discussing differences? Ensuring commitment and accountability, use clear communication, Ensuring commitment and accountability. Use clear communication strategies, establish performance standards, and implement regular reviews and feedback loops. And finally, practical challenges and strategies. Look at the hierarchical and personality differences like we did. Address power dynamics and leverage diverse perspectives through structured activities and mentorship programs. Create a non-dysfunctional team. Implement zero tolerance for bullying. Promote open communication, and establish formal governance structures in family-owned businesses. Focus on results. Set a collective goals aligned with organizational objectives. Track progress through KPIs, and celebrate team achievements. The point is that you can both do what's in the book and you can do what's outside the book in trying to create a better environment for teams in your organization, in your life, in your relationship. Thank you for.
You're listening to Curiosity Invited with David Bryan here on LA Talk Radio. You're listening to 90 Day Soulmate with the Relationship Engineers, Jim Golnick and Lisett Guevara, only on LA Talk Radio.